The Heiltsuk have always been great protectors and guardians of their territory. We lost the right and the authority to do that many years ago. We have that back now. And so we now have 50% of our territory, which is in protection. Nothing can go on there without our being a part and involved in that. So we now have to exercise our stewardship and responsibility to make sure that that stays healthy. The Grizzly project and the whole monitoring scheme is part of a bigger program that we call Coast Watch. And what we're attempting to do is come up with monitoring standards that work and that we can use for developing a protocol for how do you measure the health of a system. The bears are pretty keystone. If there's no bears and no fish, then we don't have an ecosystem down there that's going to work. So we feel between the salmon and the bears, we're going to get a pretty good view of how healthy our watersheds are. And then we can make informed decisions about what we want to go on or not go on in that conservancy.
The river's been used by our people for thousands of years for gathering salmon, other resources in here, mostly the salmon. It's a salmon-driven ecosystem in here. Salmon are probably the most important piece of everything in here. The grizzlies and the eagles and everything rely on it. The Heiltsuk have been dependent on it for a long time.
What we have is a bear track. It's a grizzly bear. And he's large bear. Quite a deep imprint.
Well, we just picked this spot because just off to the side here is a bear trail, and there's lots of scat as well as fish remains that are on the trail. So we pick a spot that's close enough to the trail that we'll smell it on the way by and come and get tripped up, leave us some hair.
We gather moss to use for putting our lure on, which goes in the middle of the snare, and we put the bait over, which is the fish oil, and then we put a little bit of scent up high on the tree in the corner of the snare to get the flow of the scent of our bait.
The Koeye Grizzly project is really part of us responding to the fact that we know very, very little about the grizzly population in Koeye. We realized that this was our first real opportunity to take a look at what is the impact of human disturbance and of changes in watersheds, because the adjacent watersheds, 2 out of the 3 at least, have been heavily logged, their fish stocks have been depleted, and we realized that there was an opportunity here for us to really understand how grizzly bears contribute to our system, but also how they're impacted by changes in our system.
This is back here from a grizzly. Looks like there's a couple of different bears been through here. There's some more blonde ones and some darker ones, silver tips. So these are just from the bear going underneath the snare and the hair getting caught on it. You can basically put together a family tree based on the hair samples, and you can tell which are the parents and the siblings and such. We can know which bears are resident here, which ones are passing through, keep track of them and where they're going to and where they're coming from. And sometimes you could tell how many bears have been through the snare just by the color of the hair. And see, this one looks like a totally different individual than the last one, and the hair is almost white. A lot of our old people talked about how our close connection with the bear goes back to our mythical days when the bear was able to transform from a human to a bear and vice versa. And bears have a lot of human qualities too now still. Our people, we believe that that's one of the reasons why they're so connected to them. Is people just think bears are these animals that are just going to hide behind the next tree and they're going to jump out and eat you. But it's a lot deeper than that, what they do in these estuaries, these systems. Dragging the salmon into the forest so that the trees can get the nutrients from the salmon. And
they're like the cleanup crew of the river. They like to pull out all the dying salmon that are finished spawning They tend to gather the salmon and put them on the banks.
They just do all these little things that might seem meaningless to us, but to smaller animals that don't have the abilities as a bear, it's what keeps them alive. So they're really important.
I think this whole Monitoring Coast Watch initiative is indicative of the new era of First Nations assumption of responsibility for their own territories. And that it's not just protecting conservancies, it's managing fish stocks, it's managing fisheries, managing forestry, it's managing our economic development and resources. This is all part of us assuming responsibility for ourselves and our territories in a way that hasn't been done for a long time. These conservancies and our connection to the land is what makes us. That's where Heiltsuk people come from. That's where our connection is. And we want to be able to have that healthy. This isn't about us. This is about our children and our grandchildren. And if we don't raise a generation of kids that are as committed as we are to our environment, then we've lost it all. So we want to be able to have healthy places for our people to go and stay connected. And that's part of this whole movement for our communities to move forward socially and economically.